you draft nerds out there. My name is Draft Raw, and thank you for tuning in to In the Clutch. Welcome once again to In the Clutch. Like I said, my name is Draft Raw. And in this video, we're going to talk about the top prospects in the 2021 NFL Draft. So you know what? Let's just get right into it. Now, we know who are the top two quarterback prospects. It's obviously Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. Well, let's get into more of the other prospects. And I know that people have been following the NFL Draft, and you kind of know guys here, there, and what they are and what they do, listening to Todd McShay and Mel Kiper or PFF or whatever you're listening to. But I'm going to get into a little bit more in-depth when it comes to these quarterback prospects. The first ones that I do want to start off with is some of the, not to say lesser known prospects, but the guys I put into like a probably third tier of the quarterback prospects. These are the guys that are probably going to go within like the third, fourth, fifth, or even sixth round. The way how quarterbacks usually kind of go within the NFL Draft anyway. So let's start with Stanford's own Davis Mills. Now, while I was watching David, there was a lot of good things about him. There was certain things that he did that made you kind of, just get excited for. But at the same time, he was a guy that kind of seemed like he didn't know if he really wanted to rip it or not. He seemed like he was just kind of working within the framework of the offense that they had at Stanford, which is not a bad thing. But to be a top quarterback, especially when you enter into the NFL, you have to show more, you have to do more. Now, Davis Mills is a guy that was a five-star recruit, so he was at the top of the chain when he was coming out of high school. And for whatever happened, guys that come out five-star, sometimes they just don't work out anyway. But something happened within him as a quarterback that kind of made him not be that guy anymore. And I don't know what it is, but it's something that I think NFL coaches could pull out of him to make him into a really good, viable, or I guess you say reliable starting quarterback within the NFL. Now, he's, like I said, is part of that third tier guys. So let's get into some more guys. I went and watch Kellen Mond. And as I was watching Kellen Mond, this was a little bit after Chris Sims said what he said. I knew of Kellen Mond. I've watched Kellen Mond before during some games in college. I thought he was a solid quarterback, but I never watched him in depth of being an NFL Draft prospect. So as I watched Mond, I saw a guy that, if I could just look at my notes here, he needs improvement on his footwork. I believe Chris Sims may have mentioned this before when he was talking about him, but he was putting him up there as he had him as the fourth best prospect to come out of this draft, and I just didn't see that. He has traits that can definitely be improved. Like there's certain things that that you can see that he has. You see him going through progressions. You see he has a good enough strong arm to really make pretty much almost every throw. You see some tight window throws. But there's also situations where he has some throws that are just pretty inaccurate. He's kind of average when it comes to pretty much everything. Like, I don't want to say that, I just said his arm strength was pretty strong, but it's average in terms of what you want in a starting quarterback. His run speed is pretty average. For a guy that was looked at to being kind of a dual threat type of quarterback, or at least what I thought he was, the way that college football would explain him, I didn't notice when watching him before, but I noticed when watching him as a NFL Draft prospect, he's not really as fast as I thought he was, and he's not really that dual threat quarterback. I think that his footwork is not great. It's solid. It's average at best. Sometimes he doesn't point his toe correctly at where he wants to go with the football, and there's other times where it's his base and everything is absolutely perfect. But it's the certain things that when you're a senior in college, you have to be like just excellent at, or at least just good at. And I guess you could say, yeah, he's just good at that, but he needs to really up his game, because I think that he could be a better quarterback, but just right now, he's just not that guy. Now, there were two other guys that I looked at in Jamie Newman and Sam Ehlinger. Jamie Newman, who played at Wake Forest and then transferred to Georgia, but decided to opt out and never played the snap for Georgia and decided to come out in the draft, which I still don't understand that. And then Sam Ehlinger, who's been the starter for Texas for like the last 3 years. Both are good, solid quarterbacks. Jamie Newman has a higher ceiling because he has that strong arm, because he has that athletic ability, because he shows certain traits that you look at for a franchise quarterback, and certain tools or certain throws that he can make. While Sam Ehlinger is just a solid quarterback, reminding me a lot of like a Trace McSorley coming out in the draft. Just doesn't have the strongest arm, but it's a good enough arm. Doesn't have crazy speed, but has good enough speed. Is a tough type of quarterback. Both guys show something that could be helpful for teams, but to me, they're both kind of backup quarterbacks. Jamie Newman has a little bit more to him, to where if he was to study under someone for about a year or two, he could be a really good quarterback in this league. But what we saw at the Senior Bowl was very, very disappointing. And who I just talked about, Kellen Mond, won Senior Bowl MVP. He showed that he can be a pretty good quarterback and improve, but Jamie Newman didn't show that. And maybe it has a little bit to do him not playing in the 2020 season, but that's his fault. He should have played. Now, at the same time, you say, well, what about his health and all of that? Well, if it's going to be that type of situation, then he should have came back this year. He shouldn't have came out in the draft, in the 2021 draft. He should have waited to the 2022 draft, and maybe he would improve on his stock and actually get better and looked at as a quarterback that could possibly get drafted. And there's a small chance he probably won't get drafted, just because he's got the tools, but how many teams want to sit there and have to work with a guy that just has tools and that's it? You know, they need production quickly and fast. So that may not be the role for most NFL teams when it comes to a guy like Jamie Newman. Now, when we get into the next rate of quarterbacks, there's the four guys, right? These four guys, and I have them listed of who I have is kind of the least in terms of the guy that I think has the least amount of potential, and to the guy I think has probably pretty high potential. And you will be surprised who I have as the highest potential guy. First quarterback, we're going to talk about Alabama Mac Jones. Yes, Alabama Mac Jones. I do not think he has higher potential than the other three quarterbacks that we're going to talk about. I know Chris Sims, who I respect his opinion, and I'm not banging on him. I really do respect his opinion, because he has made some. He's said some good things in the past. So I'm not banging on him. I really do like Chris Sims, but he had Mac Jones as his third best quarterback, and I don't see it. I see what he's saying in terms of he's a good, solid, stand in a pocket quarterback. I wouldn't say he looks like Tom Brady, but when you look at the Alabama offense, he kind of takes control, and he's able to do some things that I think all of these quarterbacks, at least the top ones that are coming out in the draft, if they was behind that type of offensive line and that offensive scheme, they would be just as good as Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is definitely better than Tua, because it's more of who he is, and he knows who he is, and he knows what type of quarterback he is. While Tua last year, I think he needed to work on some things, and he needed to get better at what type of quarterback he was. And if you look at my previous video from last year about the quarterback prospects, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll put that in the description box below. But Mac Jones is a solid arm. 90% of the time, it was a clean pocket. Loses accuracy when pressured, and that's something that happens with a lot of quarterbacks. So I can't really bang on him about that, but it's something to really look at, because in the NFL, not every team has a great offensive line. And the biggest thing is that every team wants a great offensive line for their quarterback to flourish, correct? But the problem is that not every team every year is going to put out that type of offensive line that they had at Alabama, which he was behind. And so he got the clean looks. He got to be able to stand in the pocket and read his progressions to the point where then he was able to make certain throws, which the throws that he made was great. But also he's throwing to these upper echelon type of receivers. I mean, last year when he played a few, he basically has 4 first-round receivers last year. 2 of them went in the draft last year, and then you got the other 2 from this year. On top of that, he may have another guy in Mechie who's another first-round type of receiver. We'll see what happens when he comes out in the draft, probably next year or the year after. But this is a situation where he's got a lot of things around him working for him, and he looks great at doing that. So you wonder, when he's put in a situation where he's not in the most ideal situation, how good will he be? And the last thing, he's just an efficient pocket quarterback. So the next guy we're going to talk about that has a little bit more potential than him is we're going to talk about Trey Lance. And Trey Lance, there's great things about Trey Lance. And people try to compare him to Josh Allen, correct? I don't see that. And I think they compare him to Josh Allen because you're comparing the quarterback of Josh Allen to what he is in the NFL right now and not what he was in college. When you watch Trey Lance's game, he does not look like Josh Allen did in college. You have to kind of compare them, not what they look like in the NFL, but what they look like in college, because then you can see where they can go improve on certain things the same way as another quarterback that came out of college that, like I said, looked like him, improved on in the NFL. Just looking at my notes, Trey Lance is an explosive runner, fast and powerful, but he's not quick. This is not Justin Fields, who we're going to talk about later, and this is not Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick. The quickness is not there, but he's got speed and power. He's got probably the strongest arm in the draft. It comes out of his hand like effortlessly, and it just seemed like he could just flick it and it's going 50 yards downfield. He trusts his arm too much. I think there's certain times where his feet and everything is not set correctly. You want to be mechanical, and sometimes, you have to make some off-platform type of throws. But in his case, when there's situations where he does not have to do that, he tends to make off-platform throws for no reason. That's why he trusts his arm too much. Just like what happened, and actually that's why the comparisons with Josh Allen, because Josh Allen did that a lot in college. But Josh Allen wasn't the runner like Trey Lance was. So not a lot of game throws. That's the last thing. There's not a lot of games where he's throwing the ball a bunch, and it's a little worrisome because you want to see more of him dropping in the pocket and be able to scan and be able to deliver the football. And a lot of times his throws were bubble screens or like go routes and stuff like that. It wasn't slanting. And not to say that he can't make the deep in route or the deep out route or the corner route type of throws, but you want to see those a lot more when you're watching the quarterback. So there's some great things about him, but there's some things that he definitely needs to work on when he comes out, when he gets drafted. What the next guy we're going to talk about is Justin Fields. And you notice there's one guy that I haven't named yet that I think that has the biggest potential. We're going to get to him. Justin Fields from Ohio State seems relaxed in the pocket. He can make all the throws. Sometimes he stares down his receivers a lot. He's a very solid runner. Got some quickness to him, but it's not as fast as I thought maybe he would be. I thought he would be like a little bit more faster. I was thinking at first, because I ain't watched Ohio State or Justin Fields that much, but I was thinking not Lamar speed, but at least Kyler Murray speed, something close to it. And he's not as fast as I thought, maybe. He's pretty accurate, which is, is really, really good. But he needs to fix his mechanics on routine throws. There are situations where just a regular slant route, a regular hitch route, his mechanics are off. And he's making the accurate throw. Like, it's still accurate, but it's a little bit off. And sometimes you can't get away with certain stuff like that. And what I mean saying it's accurate is that he throws it within the range of the receiver, not that the ball is put right between the numbers. And that's the difference. A range of a receiver could literally just be my outstretched hands, not where I want it to be right here. This is range, this is the same range, this is the same range, but right here is where you want it. And not every quarterback's gonna be perfect, but when you routinely not have the best mechanics, you tend to get off with those type of throws. And the last thing is not a lot of tight window throws. It's not a lot of that, and that's gonna be a problem within the NFL if he's always looking for the wide open guy. And people talked about his progression. You know, if you've heard all of that type of stuff, you know, him not going through his progression and stuff like that. That's something that can be worked on, but trusting yourself to throw in the tight windows have to be something that he has to get used to and has to get better at for him to be successful in the NFL. Now, the guy that has the most potential of this quarterbacks class, besides Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. And in this video, I'm not even going to talk about those two because they're talked about enough, okay? Kyle Trask from Florida, to me, has the best potential. Now, he's looked at as being the top of the second round type of quarterback with Kellen Mond, while Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields are looked at to go within the first round. Kellen Mond may sneak into the first round. Who knows? But Kyle Trask, when I watched this tape, I was in awe of this quarterback. I didn't know how good he was. Great deep ball thrower. Can fit the ball in tight windows. Very accurate. He loses accuracy and mechanics when he's pressured, just like Mac Jones. He just tend to lose the mechanics and accuracy. And that's something that he has to work on in and of himself to get better. But he knows where to put the football. He gave his players the chance to make plays. And that's something that you can't teach. It's something where he wasn't throwing to guys that were completely wide open all the time. He had to make the throw and put the ball where only the receiver could get it, or put the ball where literally if the receiver don't get it, the defenders definitely not get it. He made some terrible decisions sometimes with certain interceptions, but there was a lot of games where it was just accurate and he was just slinging it. And I can't name every game off the top of my head. I know Alabama game he played really, really well. Like I said, I can't name all the games off the top of my head, but this guy has something special to him, and I think that he may be more of the most underrated quarterback within this draft. So anyway, that was the top quarterback prospects of the 2021 draft. Like I said, there's no point in talking about Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. They're the top two guys. I will say this. I do have Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence. It is what it is. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I guess I'll see y'all next time. Thank you once again for tuning in to In the Clutch. Once again, my name is Draft Raw, and if you want to see more videos from me, then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Draft Raw. And if you want to hear more from me, then you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at the same name, Draft Raw. Once again, thank you. I'll see you next time.